The tune that you just heard is one of our hymns for this coming Sunday, Ye Servants of God. And as we talk about congregational singing, which, by the way, I still miss an awful lot, this particular tune is another that the text was written by Charles Wesley, a very prolific writer, as you know. But the tune itself was called Hanover. And forgive me for referring to notes, but I'm going to have to do that some today. And it's attributed to William Croft from about 1708, somewhere in that time. And he was at one time the organist and choirmaster at Westminster Abbey. And it was put together over a long period of time. The two didn't work together. It's just that one heard the other and put the thing on paper. But that's the way the congregational music worked a lot. Last time we talked, we were at a kind of a standstill. We were in the Middle Ages. There really wasn't much congregational music going on in the Middle Ages. It just was partly a power play by the people that led the church. They didn't like it. They knew a lot of people were enjoying music on a secular level, and they just didn't want it in the church. But people were still writing hymns. A guy named Bernard of Clairvaux, how's that for a name, wrote the words to O Sacred Head Now Wounded. And nearly 400 years later, somebody by the name of Bach put music to it that we still revere and love and appreciate today. He also wrote the text to All Creatures of Our God and King, another hymn that we sing in the church. But they didn't sing it in their church, not at that time. There was a real fear about music's involvement in the church from the people that were in charge. Outside of the church, there was a period of time at which there was a great deal of music, madrigal music, which actually started in Italy. Sounds like an English term, but it's not. Was around in the 13th century. Kind of went away in the 14th century. Started coming back in the 15th and 16th centuries. In France, those same people were called jongleurs. I hope J.D. Grimm did not hear me say that word, goodness. Anyway, jongleurs. They were folk singers of their time. They were the minstrels of their time. Theater was a big deal. There was music in theaters throughout Central Europe, but not in the church. We finally get to the guy that is called the father of congregational singing, and that's Martin Luther. Now, some of this I will agree with. He really did a major job of getting us started in singing. He was actually a pretty proficient musician himself. He was actually quite good. Very open-minded, and did not mind using music that was popular in the day, whether they came from bars or taverns or some of the minstrels that were just having fun. He brought them into the church, and he felt like if it was good enough for them, it was good enough for the church. And he really encouraged that. And that's roughly in the 15th, early 16th century, right? He believed that things, that music ought to be used to promote the Word of God. He was just very, very open-minded about it. He composed 37 hymns, and he was not the most prolific hymnist, but he did write about 37 hymns. While he was in Germany, while he was there, a little later, another theologian came along by the name of Zwingli. I'm getting all these words today. He was a Swiss theologian, and he was a little after Martin Luther, and he also felt like there ought to be music in the church, but he did not want it to be congregational. He flat out did not want any congregational singing. And he was just over the Swiss border from Germany for about maybe not more than 30 to 50 miles away. And for at least 50 years, even after Luther died, there was no congregational singing in that part of Europe because Zwingli thought it was not a good thing. And then finally we come to John Calvin. Yay, Presbyterian, all right? And he also was instrumental, but he changed things again. So Luther said, yes, let's do it. He actually kind of brought about the idea. Zwingli then said, no, that's a bad idea. I don't care how well it worked for you. And then Calvin came back and he said, okay, let's do it, but he restricted it. He wanted there to be so much of a restriction. For example, nothing but psalms could be sung for a long, long time. All of these understood the innate power that music seems to have in people. All three of these understood that it was a natural thing, but all approached it believing that they were right and doing what God wanted them to do from three different aspects. It was just kind of an interesting time. And moving forward to that, we'll finally get into people that, for lack of a better phrase, brought us to where we are. There are a lot of composers and lyricists that we'll get into that bring us into our present time. To get back to the hymns that we're doing today, I've already told you about You Servants of God. We're going to also sing what is for me maybe the best opening hymn that a church service can have. There are several like this, but this one brings tears to my eyes every Sunday. And it's Holy, Holy, Holy. The text was written by a guy named Heber. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. He was good friends with Sir Walter Scott, if you want to kind of find a reference there. He was a parish vicar in a small church, and he followed his father there. He was in the village of Hodnet, right? And he wrote 57 hymns during the 16 years that he was there. Later on, he was at another church and suffered a stroke and died. And his wife, after his death, found those 57 hymns, and they were all eventually published. The music itself came from John Dykes, who was the organist at St. Peter's in Denver. Yeah, Denver, Colorado. And he was choir master at the age of 13. No, I didn't do that at 13, just to let you know. He eventually taught at Juilliard and at Union Theological Seminary in New York. And when you hear the hymn, yes, there will be a descant this Sunday. See you next week.